Thank you, Carla. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 5th at 7:01 p.m. I am in chambers along with Councillors Abbott, Barmare, and Cunliffe, and Councillor Bain is virtual. The staff, we have live CAO DeJong, CFO Rook, and Municipal Coordinator Duarte. I see we've got a gallery. It's a busy night tonight, so let's get right to it. Council has come from an in-camera session which was stopped so we could come back live. There are many things to report out, and I will begin with it now. First item, the Citizen of the Year and Distinction Award inscriptions were decided on by Council. The second item, Council confirmed the regional contact statement for Metro, which will be sent out tomorrow and can be found on the website tomorrow. Municipal Coordinator, yes. Next item, the Ocean View Road End was discussed, and a report will be provided at the next meeting in open. And that would be that. And another item, a resident on Bayview was identified as improperly tree cutting. They have now been aware of the issues and what the proper procedures are. Unfortunately, fines were involved as well. Next item was that on the issue of tree cutting, it was also noted that some trees were cut out on what we thought was village property, but is now identified as CN lands. And we will discuss their tree cutting policy when they are with us in the late spring. Also the bylaw enforcement officer. Thank you, Carla. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 5th at 7:01 p.m. I am in chambers along with Councillors Abbott, Barmare, and Cunliffe, and Councillor Bain is virtual. The staff, we have live CAO DeJong, CFO Rook, and Municipal Coordinator Duarte. I see we've got a gallery. It's a busy night tonight, so let's get right to it. Council has come from an in-camera session which was stopped so we could come back live. There are many things to report out, and I will begin with it now. First item, the Citizen of the Year and Distinction Award inscriptions were decided on by Council. The second item, Council confirmed the regional contact statement for Metro, which will be sent out tomorrow and can be found on the website tomorrow. Municipal Coordinator, yes. Next item, the Ocean View Road End was discussed, and a report will be provided at the next meeting in open. And that would be that. And another item, a resident on Bayview was identified as improperly tree cutting. They have now been aware of the issues and what the proper procedures are. Unfortunately, fines were involved as well. Next item was that on the issue of tree cutting, it was also noted that some trees were cut out on what we thought was village property, but is now identified as CN lands. And we will discuss their tree cutting policy when they are with us in the late spring. Also the bylaw enforcement officer hires were advised from staff to council, and you can expect to see those announcements shortly in the village update. And lastly, previous RCMP report, there was questions that council had for staff who've gone back to the RCMP, and on a confidential basis, the RCMP has responded. It's a pretty long list, and we will do more reporting out at the end of our session tonight. Which brings us to adoption of the agenda. Before we do that, there are many additions. So I will go through, if everybody could have theirs ready, I'll ask for it. The first ones that I had was on your mayor's report. I'll do a quick update on ECOM, and I'm drawing from correspondence about aerial and ground herbicide spraying. Under council reports, since he was in attendance, I'd ask Council Bain to give us a quick update on the Council of Councils he attended over the weekend. Next, on correspondence, we have several pieces of on-table correspondence, and it will be known as item B, and there'll be additions, and those will also be on your website. And under new business, topic will be commercial roadside signage. Councilors, if you and CAO, if you have any other additions or deletions, please advise us now.
Just the fact that we've got two our arborist reports to discuss. That's at item 8B.
Thank you very much.
One from Heartwood, which I think is in the agenda material, and one from Radix, which is the arborist that staff retained.
Thank you very much. And relative to the public who may not be as attuned or have seen these reports, where would they find them if they were looking tomorrow?
On additional resources under this agenda.
Thank you very much. Anything else that you want added, deleted, CAO?
Nope.
Good. Councillors, this is your chance. Anything more, anything less?
I'd like to add a short discussion on Thursday night's natural hazard assessments. Committee of the whole meeting.
The committee of the whole meeting?
Yeah, it's planned for Thursday night.
Where would you like that?
Council report, I guess, if you know where else you put it.
About under council reports, if you could read that.
Sure.
Thank you. Just a second. There's a committee of the whole. Okay. Anything else, councillors? Okay, full agenda. Let's get right to it then. All those in favor of the agenda as amended, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes. Yes.
Carried. Thank you. Public participation. I see we have members of the gallery. If you'd like to come forward, you're welcome to. You don't have to turn your camera on. You can just unmute. And happy to receive you. I would ask that you respect the 2-minute warning, and you'll hear the buzzer when it goes. Thank you. Mr. Sredsky, I think you had your hand up first, and you are live, sir.
Thank you. Good day to everybody. My first question is to yourself, Mr. Mayor. We go to Metro meetings, and we would like to know how long you knew about this spraying pesticide over our heads. This was in agenda for Metro for quite some time, as we discovered, and to big surprise to all of us, this is bad chemistry, and we would like to know why this was not addressed to our knowledge. I have a second and third question to administrator, asking him this time to try to strain his brain and try to respond in more than 2 words. First question is, what is the meeting about geohazards? Do we have geohazards in Lions Bay, or are they fabricated again? And second question is, where is the plan for a village project that we're paying for at the beach? The plans were not posted as he suggested on the website, and they are not available. So where do we stand? Where is the tender? And when do we see the tender? Is there a public tender or is it a private tender? Please be clear, Mr. Administrator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sredsky. I think I would prefer that on the some of these questions that we do this in writing to you. So I hope that'll be acceptable to you, and we'll move on. Anybody else in the gallery? You want to come forward? No reason to be shy. Mr. Leeson, again, you don't have to turn your camera on, just unmute.
Hello. I just wanted to touch base and get a little bit of an update on the potential tree cutting, where we are with the 2 arborist reports, to have a little bit more feedback from you on council.
If you hang around for another 20 minutes, you're going to see it ringside.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to come forward? Please do. Okay, thank you very much. Gallery members, there being none, I'll move forward to the next piece, and that's review and approval of the minutes of March 22nd. I'll put forward that motion that they be approved as circulated. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Any changes, additions, deletions? Oh, hang on, Mr. Reuter, hang on. I looked down when you looked up.
Sorry, my apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine, and your visual is good too.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I was having a little trouble here. Yeah, to the tree on Stewart Road, and I do hope this will be the last time I have to appear about this here in front of you. I sent all of you a copy of the arborist report about 2 weeks ago that the residents of our street commissioned, and I was very heartened to see that the report from the village's arborist is very much in alignment with the first report. It seems to be the case that both arborists agree that the tree is healthy, vigorous, has an intact canopy and a healthy crown, and that it poses a low hazard, and that the ubiquitous topping that we had been referring to is probably the result of wind or storm or bird damage, and that the best thing for the tree, and the recommendation seems to be to leave it alone and certainly not top it. The most important thing, it seems to me, is that we need to recognize now that the tree, although it may be a beloved tree or a heritage tree or various other things that it's been called, it is a significant tree under our bylaw, and 2 arborists have chimed in to that effect, and that this raises the bar of responsibility, and that we need to view it at a higher standard. Again, the removal or cutting of any significant tree shall only be allowed by special exemption and when no other compromise can be found, and that exceptions can only be made in cases where such cutting or pruning is unavoidably required for reasons of safety or exceptional circumstances. That's from our bylaw. It's abundantly clear.
Mr. Reuters, I asked you to wrap up here. I think we're going to be talking about this in another minute or two.
Okay, yeah, I just want to say that it's abundantly clear to me that we don't need to do any, that there are no exceptional circumstances. All we're asking for is this one tree remain untouched as it is, and I will leave that in your hands, and that's what we hope for on this street. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reuters. Again, there appears to be nobody else that wants to come forward. Mr. Reuters, put your hand down, please, and you may want to mute. And thank you. Then moving back to, thank you, Mr. Reuters again, back to the approval of the minutes. Councillor Cunliffe seconded that. I have no changes. Anybody else? Please come forward and advise.
I have one. At the bottom of page 15, I got a little confused when I was reading the minutes between the 360 Ocean View and 310 Ocean View tree permits, but as I read them several times, I think the mistake is 9:52, Councillor Barmeyer declared a conflict incident and left the room, should be under 310, which is the bottom of the top of the next page.
Yeah.
No?
No.
Sorry, so the tree permit that you were recusing yourself for was correct. It was.
I think it was taken out by 360.
It was 360. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Top of the hill is 360. Right. So in that case, then,
So
the discussions below are then swapped around. Because
sorry, what do you say?
so if we jump down to page, let's do it this way then, to see if I can get some clarity. If we jump down to page 17, it is under 310. And that's where there's this, the motion was amended to add that all 3 of the named neighbouring residents are advised when the work is happening. Right.
that was specifically requested in respect of that application.
In application 310.
Yes, on the 310 is the one where I drew that one matching the other ones that we've done.
It's actually on the low side of the street. The
Yeah,
trees are
okay.
like around 275 and 285, 265.
Yeah, sorry, I just correct it. I guess I had them mixed up in my mind. Okay, all right, I completely apologize. Yeah,
No problem. You're good with that, the rest of it? No problem.
yeah, it's all kind of making sense.
Thank you. Councillors, if there are no other changes, I'll call a motion. Those in favor of the minutes as they are, please confirm by saying yes, opposed no.
Yes.
Yes,
Good, thank you. Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? I think we're seeing a whole bunch of it tonight. I don't have anything new.
so just give me 1 second. I thought I had one. So just one question on no business arising. So in that case, Peter, can you confirm that all those 3 neighbours were advised of when that tree work was going to happen?
Yeah.
Yes, they were.
They were?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And the trees were also measured to make sure none of them were over 70 centimeters in diameter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. No other business arising. The 2 unfinished items, Mr. Jaffrey, I don't think there's any change there, is there?
Well, with the rail crossing stop signs, that's subject to budget approval. And once budget approval is done, they'll come back to council for once we've engaged or once we've gone out for a contractor to perform that work, that'll come back to council. So I don't know if you need it on here. It will come back before we issue a contract or enter into a contract.
I think, thank you very much for the info. I think we'll leave it on. I think it's,
Sure.
That's fine. It's not much. We're moving through these pretty quickly.
With the Rodenticide package, so that was carried forward from December 14th. Since then, council has amended the pesticide bylaw, and public works staff have and will continue to follow up with our pest control contractor to ensure that we're using animal kind pest control. For example, up at the training compound where we had the rat infestation at the fire training compound, we ended up using snap traps as a lethal method to contain that instead of poisoning.
Thank you very much. That takes care of that. And we'll give you a pause before we ask you to give your verbal update on the arborist report for the tree at Bayview and Stewart. And I think it would be fair to say if you've got any comments on the report that was done by the residents, those would be welcome too.
So essentially, just to refresh council's memory on this, we were, Public Works was asked to engage an arborist before the residents provided their report. So we had engaged an arborist and then the residents provided their report from Heartwood. Both reports confirm that the tree has been topped by natural means. There's a codominant split that's present at the top of the tree, 23 to 24 meters above the ground. From our arborist report, there have been previous canopy failures, evidenced by the hanging branches within the tree's foliage, as well as the photos of the broken limbs on a tree. This is absolutely normal for Douglas firs. Public Works has picked up branches off of Stewart Road during wind events, etc. So directly underneath that tree. The multiple stems resulting from the topping will have weak attachments and are more susceptible to failures at these attachment points. Our arborist recommended removing the smaller of the 2 codominant leaders at the previous topping point, which is on page 14 of our report. Our arborist has also recommended selective pruning of the branches to remove some of the deadfall and to remove the hanging branches that are still hung up in the canopy. Should those fall, they could pose a potential hazard. Overall, both arborists have said that the tree's generally in good health and at low risk of failure. However, the next point, and Councillor Abbott and I have talked about this, Public Works has it ingrained in themselves to avoid risk wherever possible. So it's an inherent trait when Public Works reviews items that they do so from a risk reduction perspective. So with that in mind, Public Works is concerned that the codominant split will at some point weaken and be subject to topping by nature again. Previously topped trees are known to form weak attachments that are more prone to breaking off, as highlighted several times in our arborist report. And then finally, adding the tree's maintenance to our responsibilities will increase our workload, not just for this tree, but setting a precedent moving forward. Any such trees that are deemed to be kept and may potentially require pruning and maintenance will just add to our workload, and we will require additional budgets to do so. So the maintenance that's requested or not requested, but recommended by Radix, we don't have a budget for. We would need to set aside funds to do so. That's pretty much all I had to say.
I can ask the first question. What kind of budget are you thinking of?
I'm not sure. We would have to engage a couple of arborists to get some quotes on this. And I do know that we also have the tree at 52 Brunswick that we're required to maintain as well. So by continually adding these to our portfolio, we're creating a workload and a budget request or task. I'm thinking maybe $5,000 to start with.
Okay, thank you very much. This is an indicative piece. Councillors, if you've got any questions, and I'm fine for the moment, but if you'd like to ask the Public Works Manager or the CAO a question on this, please do so now.
Maybe I'll, so no, yes, we did discuss this briefly earlier this afternoon. You're not suggesting that it's going to cost $5,000 to do the maintenance on this tree. I don't hope. I would think it's considerably less than that.
Yeah, it's not just this tree. This tree will be a bit pricey because of all the dead hanging branches. But we also have to maintain the tree at 52 Brunswick. So I'm thinking both.
Yeah, well, we used to get a bucket truck and an arborist for, and it was $1,500 a day, and that won't be more than an hour or two's work, I would have thought. Anyway, it's fair to say that both arborists put the risk of something happening here as low, as in the probability was low, and the likelihood was low, as was the amount of damage. And they both said this is a very low likelihood that anyone is going to get damaged, or any property is going to get damaged by this tree. I'm not sure why. I understand, and what you're saying earlier, that you programmed to be risk averse, but I think as a council and a community in general, we need to weigh up the risk. And Councillor Palmer has spoken to this many times, and if there is a small risk that a branch could fall and there could be someone standing under the tree at that time, which is very unlikely, then is that what we need to take on as a municipality? Safety is always never absolute. You can always never make it 100%, although you always strive for that. So that's kind of my comments on that, on the report. I guess I was meant to be asking you a question. But is that fair to say you agree that both those reports had as the risk was extremely low?
Yeah, absolutely. Both arborists followed the ISA certification tree risk assessment procedure. It's a scripted procedure that arborists are supposed to follow when assessing risk. And both have identified that tree is low risk.
Thank you very much, Public Works Manager. Councillors, if you've got any questions, please ask the Works Manager now relative to the two arborist report. If there's silence, I'll be going to the reconsidered motion. And I take that as silence. And I'll ask staff to assist me. I brought forward the reconsidered motion at the last meeting, and that passed and it was reconsidered. The recommendation that was that staff undertake an arborist report. That piece has now been done, and you've got not one but two arborist report, which leaves us with the core issue of the reconsidered motion. And to that, municipal coordinator, I'll seek your advice. I asked if you had it, we could put it up on the screen just so we could all have a quick look at it one more time. Excuse me, or I could be more specific that council had approved the previous tree committee recommendation, and I can word something around this singled out tree. What would your preference be?
Well, I think just from a practical standpoint, what we're dealing with is to be clear. At the time the motion to reconsider was brought and voted on, it was clear and made clear that it pertained at that point in time only to this remaining tree, as the other work had been done to the best of everyone's understanding. So it was reconsidered with respect to this particular tree, as opposed to the whole work of the original application.
Thank you.
So what's left to deal with is this tree, and toward that end, you asked that we obtain the arborist report, and as you state, we've got two.
Okay, thank you very much. So now that we have the report.
Sorry, if I could. Peter, do we need a resolution indicating that the tree is to be saved? However, the pruning that's recommended by our arborist be carried out?
I think you're jumping the gun. Council hasn't discussed the matter and come
Actually,
to a decision yet.
To be candid,
Sorry.
Thank you, Peter. You stopped me where I was going, which was to focus on this one tree, because it's pretty clear that if we're only talking about this one tree, and now everything was on standstill. Then we did the recommendation on the arborist. We've got that. Now we're back to the tree. So what I proposed before council will be specific to this one tree. And I believe municipal coordinator and CEO, that fits the bill if we move a motion.
Yeah, I'm just remembering that you're considering this or reconsidering this in the context of an application that was made by an applicant for a tree cutting permit. So you somehow have to relate it back to that application. Right?
Okay, so back to tree application number 118. I will put forward the recommendation.
Sorry, can we just be clear about what the tree committee recommended? What did the tree committee recommend?
I will
That was not clear.
we'll go with this third party, CAO. Could you recall?
So the tree committee recommendation,
I'm just,
Carl's gonna pull it up right now so that I don't have to.
I believe they were
Yes.
cutting it down.
That's not what was written in the recommendation, but afterwards we.
I'd like to know what was written in the recommendation. Thanks.
so they recommended that council approves tree cutting permit application number 118, subject to the following: topping, trimming, removals to be in accordance with the photos and requested work in the application materials. The tree at the junction of Stewart Road and Baby Road must be removed completely. The applicant must clean up and remove all associated debris and notify the municipality as soon as possible after the cutting to advise that this has been done. The applicant will contact the owner of 262 Stewart Road to confirm that they have no objection to the work. The owner will then forward this confirmation to the village office. Before and after photos of the work are required, and the tree cutting permit shall be valid for 1 year, subject to compliance with the bylaw and traffic control plan and damage deposit. and any other municipal bylaw requirements.
Thank you very much. Any other questions relative to the recommendation from the tree committee? Otherwise, I'll go forward with the motion. None? Councillor Bain, none? You're good? Thank you. Okay, the motion I put forward relative to this specific tree on tree application 118 is that it is not removed and it is not chopped. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Open to discussion, and I will go with Councillor Bain first, Councillor Barmeyer second, Councillor Abbott third, Councillor Cunliffe fourth.
My thoughts on the matter have moved all over, just like a tree blowing in the wind, to be funny, I suppose. I'm not in favor of hacking down trees recklessly, and our bylaw has specific recommendations and what is allowed and what isn't. And it sounds like from two arborists, this tree doesn't meet the criteria of being cut down. I would have thought that topping would have been fine because you got to maintain it once you've done a tree topping, but that doesn't seem to be the recommendation from the arborists as well. So I think no matter what I think about topping trees or chopping trees down, the laws state what they state, and it sounds to me like our only option is to let the tree stand with some maintenance on it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmeyer?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a healthy tree. I'm not a big fan of signing up to start maintaining trees on the boulevards. We've got many thousands of trees.
I would mention that maintenance was not part of the recommendation.
Yeah, okay. So that's my only concern, that we don't start paying to maintain trees and we can't afford it. But otherwise, I am not an arborist, so I'd have to stand behind the arborist report.
There you go. Councillor Cunliffe or Councillor Rabbit.
Yeah. I think, as Mr. Reuter put it, the fact that it is a significant tree, it's clear our bylaw talks about significant trees for a reason, and that was the miss. It should be identified as a significant tree. We should have taken those extra measures, and we didn't. So the decision, the original decision, was wrong in my opinion, and it should be rectified by letting the tree stand.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe.
There's really nothing else to be said. Two arborists agree. What Councillor Abbott just said, is a significant tree. So I guess it stays, and the residents spoke. We've listened to them, and that would be that.
Thank you very much. Municipal Coordinator, could you read the motion back?
That council, in reconsidering tree application number 118, does not recommend that the tree at Stewart and Baby Road
Does not approve
that the tree at Stewart and Baby Road be removed or topped.
Thank you very much. Last minute of discussion before I call motion, which I will now. Please advise whether you confirm the motion or are opposed.
Confirm.
Confirm. Carried. Thank you very much. And next piece, item number 9, reports. Welcome back to the West.
If I may, your worship, sorry.
Yes.
So does that mean we're not to do any maintenance on that tree?
It wasn't part of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So sorry, I'm just going to follow up on the Public Works Manager's comments there, because we have a recommendation from the arborist that we hired to cut the codominants, the smaller of the two codominant stems. Part of that would be, on the basis of risk assessment. So are we just going to let that go and not do anything, or are we going to go ahead and do that, which has a cost attached to it?
If I could weigh in on that comment, I think the CIO is entirely correct. It's a situation that will require work, and I think we wouldn't be maintaining a very high standard if we let the tree gradually get deteriorated and become a threat. So I think even though it may not be in the motion, I think practicality compels that we do maintain it to some safe degree.
If I take the counterpoint that we could probably with little effort find a dozen more trees with the same issues, would you have the same view?
Sorry, can I interject, Your Worship?
Yep.
I think the question there would be one of awareness, knowledge. Here we have specific knowledge of a particular risk with a recommendation from a qualified professional to take certain action to reduce that risk as reasonably whatever is a reasonable thing to do. In the case of all these other trees around the village that might have similar circumstances, we don't know about them. It hasn't been brought to our attention. We're not aware of those risks, have no specific knowledge of them. So it's not an apples to apples analogy, and not really one that is pertinent to the conversation or the issue at hand.
All right. Public Works Manager, would this be something that can be absorbed in your budget as it stands?
I would look to the CFO for that. And just a reminder that work will not happen until the fall, until the nesting window is over. So basically we would follow the recommendations of our arborist in ensuring that tree is safe and healthy, and ensuring that the larger of the two codominant stems takes precedence.
Can I suggest we go back and I know that was the recommendation. I'm not reading it now. I didn't jump out to me as the most urgent thing that needed to happen. The other arborists seem to think we should just keep monitoring the tree. The village arborist spoke the same things about monitoring the tree and not hung up branch and stuff all the way till the end. There was the suggestion of the codominant. So I don't know. It was really screaming to me that this had to happen and had to happen now. So I think we should just review it in that light.
Yeah, to Councillor Abbott's point, it does not have to happen now. It wouldn't happen until the fall, until the nesting window, unless the CAO thought otherwise.
Nope.
Then I would suggest that
That's still this budget year.
We do have budget for dangerous trees every year. So, I mean, we could probably absorb it in that. I mean, if something else came up during the year, we could potentially go over budget, but we do put a budget in every year for.
I could bring this forward in September.
How about we leave it with you and the CFO to work this out if you need to. Otherwise, it's in your operational budget. If the calendar permits and you have the time. Councillors, are you fine with that?
Yes.
Councillor Abbott?
Sure.
Good.
We'll leave it till then.
Let's move on. CFO, welcome back. 5-year financial plan, and the request is that the information be received. You have the floor.
So subsequent, at the last council meeting, council approved a 6.5% tax increase for 2022 and the capital. So the next step to that is preparing the 5-year financial plan, which is a schedule in the bylaw that has to be passed by legislation. So I've got some attachments here. The one that council might be most interested in is the 2022-2026 capital project list. It's the list we look at every year, and we've just kind of rejigged it into slots. It's kind of our best guess. So the main purpose of this 5-year plan is to look at the capital expenditures and the operating expenditures and see how they fit in over the next 5 years, and to see how we will fund it, which is what this 5-year plan attempts to do. So there's been some assumptions made. I've shown you just what property tax and expense and labor increases I've used in the budget. But I want you to draw their attention to the fact that I have assumed we'll borrow the full $3 million for our loan authorization bylaw. I've included 2 infrastructure grants. So I don't know if we will be successful with these grants. One we haven't applied for yet, the Bayview DWIP we have applied for, but we won't hear until summer of 2023. I've included the sale of Ocean View lots and the Public Works property, just with very rough estimates. But the main point I want to make is, in order to balance this budget, I needed that revenue, because I can draw your attention to the reserve funds. I've done it as of 2020 because this is the last time it was audited. This can be updated after the next audit, which is occurring next week. The reserves I'm estimating will have gone up at 2021 to about 1.9 million. The unrestricted surplus, though, is a little different. I don't know what that will be until we've finished the financial statements. And it's important that the actual reserves we have for capital is 1.5. Unrestricted surplus is you need sort of a minimum amount of surplus for emergencies. And it's also can't all be used for capital. It needs to be our working capital as well. So when I say we have 4.8 million, that would not all be available for the capital expenditures that are in the budget. So then I have the draft consolidated financial plan, which forms a key part of the bylaw, which is later in the meeting for 2 readings. And then we also have the capital, the 5-year plan for the capital. So that's the first time council's seeing that this year. And then just a summary of what the capital requests were, which were approved at the last meeting. So I wasn't sure, again, the best approach if council wanted to ask questions or.
Thank you very much. We'll give everybody a chance. We'll go in slightly modified order. We'll ask Councillor Barmeyer, Councillor Cunliffe, Councillor Abbott, Councillor Bain, and myself to close. And if you're good, you're good. Councillor Barmeyer.
Yeah, I'm good for now. I'm gonna need some time to go over it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott.
A couple of quick questions. First, where do we start? Okay, so when we have the grants in 22-23, the ones that we currently have, so you might understand that in the revenues on page 24, for example, prorated the grants over the 2 years as they would be spent, or do you realize the grants in the year that for the full value in the year that you get the grant?
No, the only one I split was the Lions Bay Beach Park project. It's a matter of matching although this is a cash budget per gap, what you need to do is if you've spent, because you're correct, you often don't get the money until the end of the grant, although with the larger grants, we do claims every quarter, but we match it to what we've actually spent so that the revenue and because even for the financial statements, we're expected to accrue the grant revenue, even if we haven't received it. So there's a matching of the revenue and the expense.
Okay, that's accrued. Okay. So what I find myself trying to work out here is, in the latter years, if we ignore the capital, is there any growth? And I guess the answer is meant to be no, right? We should be, if we were able to ignore the grants and the capital and the loans, we should be coming out because we should only be taxing for our operating costs, correct?
Well, plus depreciation.
Plus depreciation.
Which I'm still not able to do in this budget. I mean, that's the thing, you have to tax more for operating. I mean, we are through the infrastructure levy, which is great, the 10%, but this budget does indicate that is a good point, that I'm still not able to budget for depreciation. Okay. So just on that note, the other thing I'll say is that I think this will all really start coming together in the fall with the third phase of our asset management plan. Sorry, I forgot to mention that when I was presenting my report, because those are all really valid points that it's all about the capital, how we're going to fund the capital.
Okay, so if I go to page 24, just to sort of phrase my question a little, we'll go to page 24, and I look at the grand total for revenues. The first one's $5 million, $5.4 million. And if I deduct off the grant, it's actually at 3.9. And if I go to the next column in 2023, which is $8 million, and I deduct off the grant and the land sales, I come to 3.9. If I go to the next column and deduct off the grant, the land sales and the borrowing, it comes out to just over 4 million. And so there's a slight steady growth. If I take out what effectively the special income values, we seem to just steadily grow. So is that $4 million reflective of just increases in tax year on year? And that's all that
If you
is.
take that out, the only increases in the revenue will be the assumption I've made about
But
taxation.
3%
The
tax.
parcel tax stay flat, the infrastructure levy, and the utility fees and rates. Really, the only other thing I tweaked a little bit, building permits are always hard to estimate, is I assumed we would start to get compliance with the parking fines, and they've just been so high the last couple of years. I lowered them a small amount for the future years, just because I have a hard time imagining we're going to sustain this level, and I'm hoping we will start to get compliance. But I didn't lower it a lot, by about 10%.
Okay. So if I look in 2026, when our surplus drops down significantly over other years, and if you look at the surplus that we got down there of $227,000, and then if I look up on the revenues in 2026, I've got grants of 295 and proceeds from borrowing of 581. I can't take those two numbers and deduct them from 227 and assume that without borrowing we'd have a deficit. Because it's not that simple, because there's project costs in the numbers above, right?
There wouldn't be any capital costs in the numbers above, other than the amortization.
Other than amortization.
Yeah. So we add the amortization back. So that's why you look down to the cash surplus, because you're correct, that would put us into a deficit. And that's why we can't afford to budget for the amortization. It's added back because it's a non-cash item. And then in a perfect world down below, I would be able to then have a transfer to surplus for the depreciation, but I'm not able to do that. And again, it's being a cash budget. The other item that we have to, there is a repayment of the debt principal. Even though principal in itself from a true accounting state isn't an expense, it's still a cash outflow that we have to budget for.
Okay, so when I go to the sheet that goes landscape and has the project capital costs, the blued out values are ones that I drew the conclusion that had grants associated with it.
Yes.
Okay. So we have, in 2026, we have some PRV stations and PRV replacements. There's not much capital in 2026. There's no grant. We assume there's no grant available for those. But back in 2024, for example, or 2023, we do have, try to find where it is, we do have PRVs associated with the DWIP project and others that were part of the grant. So why is the assumption that there's no grants available in 2026 for
There might be grants available, but realistically, there's a 2-year grant cycle. I mean, there was almost a 2.5-year grant cycle the first time we played for the Bayview DWIP. This is the last offering of the Bayview DWIP of the ISIC grants. We have no idea what grant's coming. And I just think it's unrealistic to assume. I think I've been aggressive here, actually assuming we're going to get 2 grants in this next 4-year period.
And the one grant
is apply for the grants.
Yeah, and the main, so and the one thing I'm looking at here is the Centre Road. And I'm trying to look at Centre Road. You've assumed that we can get a grant, which is PRVs, water main replacement PRVs in 2025. You assume that we can get a grant. But the next year in 2026 for a much smaller PRV project, we assume there's no grants.
Yeah, if I may, Councillor Abbott, the 2 projects that we do assume we're going to get a grant for are akin to the Bayview DWIP. They're road, water main, and drainage work. So the drainage work, we can combine, we can classify as green infrastructure. And that's primarily where they tie in for the grant. The PRVs would not qualify for green infrastructure. There's no green component to them. They're basically a replacement of infrastructure without improvement.
Okay.
It is just like a placeholder in the sense that I thought, okay, there's going to be 2 grants. I don't know what the grants are going to look like. We think more and more they're going to be more and more climate based, because like I said, this is the end of the ICIP. So further to your point, I mean, this whole thing, could we rearrange it every year? We could then be applying for a different grant in 2026 and not in 2025. It was really just, I needed to get 2 grants in there, but it's very nebulous. I mean, like I said, I have no idea what the new grants are going to look like, the infrastructure grants, and what will be eligible. My concern is they'll get more and more, I'm not saying concerned that I don't agree with it, but they'll get more and more climate oriented, and more projects that we need will fall off the table and will not be eligible for
Okay, so
grants.
we've seen a bit of that already.
Sorry?
I said, we've seen a bit of that already.
Oh,
We've
yes,
seen that happen already.
Exactly.
Okay, so the big risk is a good chance that come 2025, we're not even, those grants are off the table, and then we're really looking at, we're in a hole. Okay.
And sorry, I also think that CFO Rook, with the furthering of this asset management strategy, we'll have much more information. I think you'll see that the 5-year capital plan will change drastically after that meeting.
And that is our hope in the fall when, late fall, early winter, when the plan is done, that will hopefully tie nicely into our strategic planning, and we can re-examine. I mean, we've been carrying this sort of same schedule for 3 years now. We'll just re-examine it and then hopefully get more of a sense of what the new grants will look like, and then be able to clean the slate and look forward in a different way in the next 5 years.
Okay. And then if I look on page 28, general fund, that 125,000 a year, is that the paving allowance that we discussed? Or what is that?
That's just sort of a placeholder. Like, we have our major infrastructure projects, but we always have other things that we need. This year it was.
So how far out did we take the paving allowance that we're going to do year on year? How far out have we budgeted for that?
150 a year.
125, I think it was, but it's gone out some years. So are we?
Yeah, it was initially budgeted for a 3-year cycle.
So
I don't
one year
believe.
left?
Sorry?
Yes.
We've got 1 year left of it?
No.
Or another 3 years?
No, this would be our 3rd year, 2020.
This would be, this would be our 3rd year. So next year we will bring forward a request at budget time for additional paving.
Okay, so that's not what the 125 was out here.
No, that's just kind of the general catch-all for the other.
And then the water infrastructure, you just picked a number of 100K, obviously not too much estimating on there. I've said this before. If we really believe we can build a new public works yard building for $1.2 million, that's okay. But that number's been flying around forever, and we should probably put a more realistic number in. Do we honestly believe you can replace the public works yard building for $1.2 million?
That was, Councillor Abbott, if I may, that was based on an estimate that was provided for a like-for-like replacement of the tin building. I think that we really need to wait to see what happens with the Crown grant, the land grant application that we made. Once that's done, we'll need to engage someone to design the public works yard, and we'll flesh out the cost at that point. So right now, it's to use the CFO's term, a placeholder.
Okay, well, I think you're getting ahead of yourself, assuming we're going to do it. But I was just suggesting that a square foot price for a metal building with all mechanical installations, those numbers should be available. And I think you're going to find 1.2 million is significant underestimate, especially how many years ago it was done. So maybe plug a different number. I don't know.
And the opposite of that, we have no idea what that grant's worth. So I've also been very conservative, to the point of, being mocked about it by a former mayor in terms of the what the land is worth. Like it's the challenge of doing the 5-year plan, because you just don't know. So it's really more of a placeholder. Like I say, I'm putting in grant revenue for grants I don't even know if exist.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bain,
So we're going to kick this around another couple of times
No, we're doing 2 readings
we're doing 2 readings
tonight.
later on.
Okay. And then,
3rd reading at the next meeting and then adoption.
I
Because
was just
there's a
wondering
statutory-
when Councillor Barmeyer got time to have his input. The clock's ticking.
No, unfortunately, I had one day to look
Okay,
at
yes.
this.
Councillor Abbott, or sorry, Councillor Bain, any comments?
I've got 2 questions, if I may. Page 25. First one's an easy one, I guess. Rescue 63, the small engine. I see it's 10.7, and if I recall right, the asking price was 10. So am I right in assuming that that vehicle is sold?
No, this is the expense. That was what the cost that we purchased.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Yeah, I got the revenue in, I think I put the revenue in at 10. It hasn't sold yet though, so that might be a little high. But that's in the revenue side, but this was the actual cost and that's being purchased in January
Okay, good.
for 10,000 plus PST.
Good. The other question I had is just below that on page 25. We've got the water fund and sewer fund. And I see when it comes down to for the SCADA, it's written as 20% sewer and 80% water for both the water fund and sewer. And I'm thinking, is that fair for those on sewer? Because the PRVs are supplying water to everybody. And those of us who are not on sewer, the water just drains into our drain fields. And those on sewer, it drains into the sewage treatment plant. So the end result of the water is the same. So it seems to me those on sewer are paying 100% as opposed to the rest of us pay 80% on the water. Am I reading this wrong?
I think
That's for the SCADA.
for the SCADA system, and that's a bit of a placeholder. Our plan is at the end to get some advice on all the things it's being used for, because we want to do a fair split between sewer and water, but it's actually, maybe the public works manager could speak to this, but it's the actual SCADA system that's going to be shared by sewer and water. But you are right that sewer, the people who live in Kelvin Grove will pay a portion of the water, but they pay that through their water fees. So I'm just talking about the portion that needs to be allocated to the sewer fees.
Oh, I get you now. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, this is just a bit of a placeholder, but when it comes to actually doing the split, we'll put a lot more thought into it and probably speak with the person installing the SCADA to see that, because we do want to make this split very, very fair. And we're conscious of the fact that sewer, not as many people pay for sewer, so we want it to be as accurate as possible.
Right. Good, thank you.
Thank you very much. If I can make some closing comments before I ask Councillor Cunliffe to put forward the motion to receive the report. Thank you very much to staff. I appreciate the hard work and skill in the 3 or 4 presentations you've made. For Councillor Bing and I, this is our 11th budget, and for the 4th in our term, quite frankly, I feel we're going through the grinder. I believe council as a group has done the right thing, putting the general tax increase in the right area, for, initiating the infrastructure tax, selling assets, superfluous properties, planning to sell more. I like where we're thinking, I like where we're going, but we need to get closer to the calendar that is the 23, 24, and 25 to really put a strong belief into where we're going to go. What it does show to me is that we can't borrow our way out of our problem. We can't tax our way out of our problem. And we might be able to increase our revenue through some development growth and continued sale of properties. But I think the next council needs to continue to keep their eye on the ball, because quite frankly, I think we're wise with our capital expenditure choices, but our infrastructure, and I'm looking forward to the meeting in the fall where we deal with our asset management plan. I think that that is going to be the part of the new council, along with embracing what the residents tell us with the OCP, is how we're going to guide our financial future. Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, can you call a motion and put forward the recommendation? to receive.
Yes, the recommendation is that the information report draft 2022 to 2026 5-year financial plan be received for information purposes.
Councillor Cormier, can you second? Call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors and staff for an outstanding and okay, Mr. Jaffrey, you've had a little bit of quiet here. Why don't you carry us to the next topic, which is the Recycle BC and Alliance Contractor Recycling Collection. To make it easier on you, I will read the recommendation and ask Councillor Bain to second. Actually, this is her cup of tea. I'm going to ask Councillor Cunliffe to read the recommendation.
The recommendation is
Page
that,
29.
yes, of 254, that council approve the terms of the agreement and financial incentives offered by Recycle BC for the curbside collection, resident education, and service administration for residential and multifamily recyclable materials collection for the term of the contract, and that the mayor and corporate officer are authorized to execute the Recycle BC agreements on behalf of the Village of Lions Bay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Berman, will you second, please?
Yes.
Good discussion. Public Works Manager, you have the floor.
So essentially, Recycle BC has contracts that are similar to what we have here with most municipalities in British Columbia. And it's part of an extended producer responsibility program where the producers of this material purchase back the recyclable materials and transfer them into other products. The contract documents are standard with other municipalities, as I've said, and don't constitute an onerous change to the way Lions Bay manages its solid waste. Staff will inform residents as we progress in the onboarding process, which is scheduled to happen in September. In the meantime, staff have work to do with our collection contractor and in getting ready for that onboarding in September.
Colleagues, any questions?
Yeah, I'll go. So, no, the first, I don't know, 20 pages or whatever, the standard contract. Well, first of all, it got me really excited because there was all sorts of things in there that they will take and they will pay you to take, like styrofoam, soft plastics, crinkle wrap, all kinds of things. So I thought, well, this is going to be great progress. We're going to be able to put in our recycling, all kinds of things that we now currently drive to the transfer station. And then when I get to the second document, it says, however, although all those things are recyclable, they have to be dropped off at a depot. So
yes,
we're back to square one from that point of view. But are there other municipalities or other collection companies that, for our future contracts, that will take those additional recyclable items, or are we still stuck with driving to the transfer station, or depot, which many of us do, and unfortunately, I'm sure there's others that just put it in the garbage. Is there any chance we're going to be able to change that?
So Recycle BC does the collection for many of the lower mainland municipalities. So it's not contracted to Waste Control or Mterra or Smithright. It's actually Recycle BC that manages those. Over the last 8 to 12 months, I believe, Recycle BC did a test pilot study in West Vancouver. They put out pink bins, which was for soft crinkly plastic. The report on how that went and the recommendations will be put forward to the province, I think, over the course of the summer. Essentially, the backgrounder that I've received from West Vancouver through my contacts there is that there were significant issues with collection of soft crinkly plastic through the curbside method. So I'm not sure where that'll go. We'll have to wait until the report comes out in the summer. Councillor Cunliffe has talked to me about setting up a potential recycling depot here that would be open, for example, 1 day a week, where residents could bring their soft crinkly plastics and other recyclables that get sent to the depot. And that is something that we are going to be discussing with our collection provider. And we'll be coming forward to council with some sort of recommendation this summer as well.
Thank you.
So if we did have our own depot, if that's the right word, or if we know how to use that word, is there any chance that Recycle BC would come collect it?
No, Recycle BC will not come collect our recycling or Squamishes, anybody in the corridor. That's simply not being offered. But our collection company would come. There's a collection on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday of institutional and commercial recycling, and we would work with our provider to come on a certain day to pick that material up from wherever we decide to have that depot.
Kind of good news, bad news.
Well,
I mean, the good news is that, you know, right now our recycling simply goes to Mterra in North Vancouver, and we don't get paid for it. Through this contract, we will get paid for it. And rough estimate is about 25,000 a year.
okay. To that point, there's also significant fines. We have a lot of educating to do, because those fines would eat your profits away pretty fast if you leave this agreement.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if we've had discussions with other municipalities and Recycle BC, and fining is their last option.
Okay.
Typically, I mean, you've seen the report, contamination report, and you'll see, for example, it's things like books, etc., that are being put into the recycling, and that's a simple education process. And I believe the residents of Lions Bay are very environmentally attuned, and I don't think it'll be a problem.
So they don't jump and trigger you 3.1% and start finding you heavily.
Negative, and it has to be contamination over several years, and the contamination rate has to continue to climb before they start triggering.
Okay, because the contract reads if they were going to do it instantly on every single offence. That's why I thought you wouldn't have much of the 25K with.
Yeah, and that's why we had discussed with other municipalities, and we also discussed it with Recycle BC over the course of several meetings. So
there you go. Thank you very much, Councillor Bain.
Yeah, the first question I had was answered just there. I see it's the municipality will receive financial incentive. Well, I didn't see one, and I was wondering. I see now there's a $25,000 possibility. But further down on page 30, key component of the master service agreement is a service level failure credits. And I don't see any credits there. I see SLFCs in the form of financial penalties for load with $500. So I'm getting a little confused by the terminology.
yeah, it is quite confusing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of left with another thought that when it goes to whoever is going to be write the VU article, it'll be a skillful writer who can explain how this works to our residents. The what goes where details will be the most challenging. But granted, this is the first time I've really had a look at it, and it does seem confusing, and those in the community who aren't used to reading government propositions and stuff like that, I think they're going to need a hand to walk through this for them to understand.
Yeah, Councillor Bain, for the most part, the residents of the municipality don't really need to know about the service level credits. Service level credit is just another term for fines. That's what they call their fines. I don't understand the terminology, but there you have it. In discussion with Recycle BC, our residents are recycling in the way that they would like most municipalities to recycle. So I don't see, I mean, unless there's some gross problems, I don't see this as being an issue. Our contractor, who is already the provider for West Vancouver, basically follows the Recycle BC mantra here in Lions Bay, even though we're not a member. And they don't believe our contamination rates are high at all. So I don't see this as an issue, and most residents won't have any issues. There won't be any issues with the way they recycle.
There you go. A silly question. I'm going to speculate that they do it at the plant. The testing for the 3%.
Yes.
Is that done at the plant, or is this random at roadside, which is always effective?
No, so they do, the Recycle BC does it at the plant. They'll provide us with a report. Other municipalities have had roadside ambassadors that go out during Recycle Day and check recycling to ensure that people are recycling properly, and then discuss with the resident. But that's a step that you take only if your contamination levels are high, and I don't believe ours will be.
I'll hold you to that, but I'm happy to be a test case myself.
I know that the Waste Control Services did say that they would send somebody out to do an audit on recycling bins. So maybe at the school, ask a few kids to bring in their recycling bins, and then they can go home and educate their parents on their recycling habits. So there is education possibilities through them as well.
Okay. Great. Councillor Cunliffe, if you're satisfied with this, I'll call a motion.
I'm satisfied.
All right, and I shall call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Party, yes. Good. Thank you. Good work, Public Works Manager. And
Thank you, Nye.
Thank you, Council.
And all.
Thank you. And Mr. Guzman, could you tell us about the project management?
Actually, we have a proposal in the closed meeting agenda materials, which has yet to be discussed tonight. So
we'll be reporting out later then. Thank you very much. Next piece, I've got a few. The first one, events committee. They will be holding an Easter event. There's your heads up. The bunny knows who you are. The chair will be doing her swan song at that event. You'll read about it in the village update. But it leaves the events committee in limbo. These are very long-standing members who sometimes do, sometimes don't want to do things. They've got some cash still left in the bank. They've asked me about Canada Day, which Canada Day is not quite what it used to be with citizen events and things like that. So that's a bit up in the air. Their thinking is that they may step up to a minor Canada Day event, and all things being good on the pandemic, blow their cash at the fireworks for October. And then after that, if we want to solicit for new events committee members, we'll do that. But it would appear to me that we are more in the retirement mode of many committees versus an enhanced mode. There's only 2 bits worth, but I'll pass on to you. The other piece is I've sent to the councillors some information on e-com about their delivery system. You probably, if you looked at your emails today, you saw Commissioner Dobrovony talking more about e-com service levels. E-com is hitting the mayor's council meeting tomorrow afternoon, and I will also be presenting to the CAO group in the next month as well too. Another one is the tree committee. I'll just bring that up. I forgot to add that, Carl, if you could add that. Tree committee is number 3. CAO DeJong and I met with the members 10 days ago and recommended some changes to the bylaws and enhancing public communication, which will come forward to council to consider in due course.
So the draft minutes are coming up.
Here we go. Oh, good. Thank you. And the The last item, and I'm pulling from the correspondence, and I think this is just the full one for the 12A, but 12B has also got issues about herbicide spraying, and it was brought up previously. I'd like to bring up the issue of aerial and ground herbicide spraying. We've got residents that are tuned to it, and I think we're taking notice of this now. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, but I'd seek CAO's guidance on this one. I mean, we're being asked to stop spraying that's not in our area, an area that we control. That is my bottom line on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a process that CN, CP, and others must follow with respect to what they're permitted to do and what they're not permitted to do. I'm not up to speed on all the ins and outs of that process and whether or not there are any deficiencies in that process. Obviously, there are a number of people who disagree with the results of the process, which is the permitted license, so to speak, that those entities are given to manage vegetation. We do see these materials from CN every year, I know. And I don't know that much has changed with respect to their program. I didn't have a chance to read up on it for this year. I'm not sure if the Public Works Manager is aware of any other aspects to this or how, if at all, there's any coordination with invasive species folks who manage vegetation in the corridor as well, or whether that's completely separate and apart.
Yeah, it's completely separate and apart. This is routine maintenance on CN's part that they conduct annually. This is not aerial spraying. This is spraying, the nozzles are attached to the front of a train, and as the train goes along the tracks, it sprays. So it's a focused application that's directed directly to the ballast of the tracks, and it happens in every municipality that rail lines cross through.
So I'd maybe try to add some context here myself and Councillor Cunliffe are looking at each other with very puzzled looks. What we're talking about here is the several pieces of correspondence the Mayor's now pulled out, talking about BC timber sales, doing aerial spraying. There's a map that shows an area that includes Lions Bay. It was, there's other areas in Metro that are complaining. It was on BC Global News last night. We're talking about what can we do as a municipality to stop aerial spraying in our village, because that's the village is not excluded from that map, as well as the catchment area around the village, our water catchment area around the village. So if you go look at that map, all the lands around the village, including where we get all our water from, is in the area that is open to this pest management policy. And what it is at BC Timber Sales, spray whatever it's called, which is effectively
Glycophosphate. Phosphate. Yeah.
Active ingredient of Roundup. They spray it in large areas, and it's there to suppress any other vegetation other than the conifers that they want to harvest. Should never not be happening in our area, and I think the concern is, can we do something about it? Can we stop it? Do we have jurisdiction to stop it? Or can we at least stop it in the areas that do have jurisdiction, and what we can do about it? That's the question. So I think we've gone a little off track with the previous.
Yes, we have, Councillor Abbott. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I was under the assumption that this was pertaining to CN. But yes, the timber sales issue is a hot topic right now.
One of the correspondents requested whether council would like to join the city of West Vancouver in requesting that the public consultation period be extended. And that's an option that council has as well if they'd like to investigate further on how that could be done. And that could be an avenue on at least getting your voice out there in opposition to the BC timber sales spraying.
I mean, the obvious question to me is, do they not understand that that's our drinking water catchment?
Well, I think you're hitting on the key point for our little village. West Van gets their water from the Cleveland Dam area, but they're going to be spraying directly onto our catchment basin, and I think that's an issue. And
absolutely.
Yeah, West Van also has Eagle Lake, which they draw approximately 50% of their water from. So it is of concern to them as well.
Could we make a deal that they give us filtration on all our treatment plants to take out the chemicals out of our water?
I don't think you're filtrating this out for sure.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
It's going to be leaching for a long time.
Yeah,
it's essentially poisoning an entire community. So let's not mince our words here.
I think that the municipal coordinator has given us the first logical step is to have a voice joining with West Vancouver and start from there.
I think we get the media involved as a small community and tell them they're going to poison our drinking water.
Well, the
It's
media,
as simple as that.
it was on global news last night. The media
Well,
was
let's get on that train and get it out to more media.
So I think as a minimum, join West Van if that's their strategy to get an extension, which we support that. But I think we need to start thinking about what else can we do. So, Peter, I mean, do we have any jurisdiction, and at what point does it end? I mean, so this map, you know, I mean, I get this map isn't the detailed map they're going to start
It's
selling.
illegal to be used on the North Shore.
Yeah.
But you know, our village is included in the pink section.
Well, I think that it's a case of probably contacting the provincial elected officials that are purportedly represent us to carry that ball to the government and the agencies that either authorize it or don't authorize it. So that's probably the only way it can be stopped is by going to the source of the authorization. So yeah, begin by joining forces with West Van, but perhaps coordinate with them as well what kind of lobbying they're doing. Happy to contact their CEO to find out what their additional plans are in that respect and how we can lend our voice to that as well.
Yeah, and I think the goal needs to be somehow to get some sort of exclusion that's permanent, because sounds like they do this every 4 years. They come up and apply for a new permit. They don't necessarily spray everywhere every 4 years. But I think we really want to get some sort of demarcation end of the day that says it doesn't happen here is the first thing. Secondly, the bigger picture is, should it happen anywhere? And I would like to focus on our area first.
And on the North Shore, you can't buy it anywhere. You can't use it.
So the two countries in the world that Roundup is still available is Canada and the US.
But you can't use it in, like you can't purchase it in the Home Depot in West Van. So why is it being allowed to be used? That's, yeah, we got to do something about that.
In terms of moving forward, I think that piggybacking with West Vancouver and using them to, I mean, there's no point both of us independently trying to find the answer. It's much easier and they're much bigger and we can thereafter do that. Would it be fair to say, CEO, that you contact your counterpart and see what their approach is?
Yeah.
And come back to us at the next meeting and we make a decision there. If council wants to go public, that's fine. Let's see what the playing field looks like. I think the public's alerted the situation to us when we go from there.
Okay. So just one last point. In theory, that this is meant to come into effect last week, 1st of April. So in theory, it could be happening. So I don't.
Yeah.
Can you contact BC Timber Sales and say, by the way, there's going to be opposition from us, and hopefully they'll say, well, you're not on the list for a while, get some further information.
So I think what we're looking for is a brief report with the playing field and perhaps a recommendation next meeting.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the invitation to join West Vancouver in protesting the wording that was received.
Yeah, it says, I'm writing to request that our city council joins the West Vancouver City Council in requesting a 60-day extension to the proposed pest management plan put forward by BC Timber Sales. So council could, write something to that effect. Because there's the public consultation period already, the deadline already passed. So it's something that you might want to direct staff to join forces.
To make the request directly to the government to extend that public consultation period immediately.
Is there public health? We can talk to the Minister of Public Health about them contaminating our drinking water. And this could be something that we got to elevate quickly.
Yeah, I think we need to also find out if they have been spraying. I've not heard of any spraying in Lions Bay, so
Well, I think the consultation period just ended, so I don't know.
No, the plan says that it comes into effect on the 1st of April. They could actually be spraying today. That's what it says.
Yeah, we could obtain a copy of that letter that West Vancouver wrote to the BC provincial government, and then draft our own, and then say that we're also in opposition and support West Vancouver.
But we do this on the resolution that council requests staff to review West Vancouver's letter on the matter, and that we draft our own, clear point being to stop the spraying. And that can be signed by the mayor, and it'll be out the door in the next couple of days.
And can we also take whatever steps we think is most appropriate to confirm that there is going to be no spraying in this area in the immediate term?
I'm leaving it to staff for the wordage, but we'd like to know every movement that's going on so we can apprise our residents. So if I think we all have faith in staff to bulk up the wording here, and I'd be happy to sign it. That's fine with you, Councillor Cunliffe. You put that forward as motion.
I put that forward as a motion.
Councillor Abbott, will you second?
Cool.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any other thoughts that you'd like on the letter? I think what we'll do is we'll spin it out to staff. Sorry, after staff's done it. Before I sign it, if we can rotate it amongst the councillors, just give everybody 24 hours to look at it, and with a 24-hour drop dead. And if there's no changes, amendments, suggestions, then out she will go.
Yeah, I'd prefer that we go out and just make the point. I wouldn't see why we wouldn't contact BC Timber Sales directly, tell them this is coming, and get some sort of confirmation from them that they aren't going to start spraying, definitely in our area or anywhere for that matter, on the 1st of April.
I think we need to make it very clear in public that it's our watershed, Ron. They need to understand that. They may not know that.
Can we,
Yeah, I've got it down.
Okay, so
Bring in our MLA on that.
resolution goes to 2 letters then? Yes? Carl, good. All right, I think we've got it. And if I could, I know it's Tuesday night and we will be out early tonight. If we could get this out this week, that'd be great, which means that the council will need to look at it by no later than Thursday midday, so we can get it out for Friday. I presume we send it all electronically. Okay, so it'll be out this week. I think we'd also like to see something in the village update. Is that fair to say? Yes, thank you. I'll leave that with staff too, and then they can use the letter as a link too.
If there is any contact that we can get for timber sales, maybe we could put that out in But in the village update, so residents can contact them directly as well, like hammer them from every angle.
There we go. All right. Call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Presenting yes, thank you very much. And to the residents who brought this forward to us, thank you very, very much. And that took care of my pieces. The next one was the council members. The first one was Councillor Bain, who attended the council of councils, and then Councillor Abbott, who's got something on the committee of the whole for Thursday. Councillor Bain.
Yeah, last Saturday was the Council of Councils, Zoom again, mostly. It was kind of interesting. Various committee heads through Metro were talking or reading prepared statements and everything on how things are going in Metro. And as I sit here, I think that there's not really that many things that we have in common with the rest of the communities, but we can see parallels. And one of the things that really struck me and I thought was interesting, the guy who spoke on the water system mentioned that Metro Vancouver has very soft water. And to my reckoning, their water is very similar to ours, except we don't have the filtration, but we do have the soft water as well. And what they were saying was that it doesn't relate to anybody in the village, that when you put your dishwasher on or something like that, you don't need the recommended amount of detergent because the soft water requires less and you get adequate cleaning with roughly 50% of the detergent. I'd never heard that before, but it seemed like it was agreed to the benefit of the water system in Metro Vancouver and also the sewerage system, because you don't get so much more chemicals and whatnot in the water. But you know, I thought that was a good piece of cheery news. I haven't verified it, but I have no reason to doubt it. So anyhow, it was an interesting, what was it, 3 hours of sitting here, but that's about it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott.
I just wanted to talk about the natural hazard assessment committee of the whole meeting that we are having, we're scheduled to have on Thursday. I started yesterday or on the weekend trying to bring myself up to speed as to where it got left on the last council. So Carl, I don't know if you can do some research, but the minutes are not on the council website. A little confusing. The meeting was held on July 17th. The next council meeting is in September. Council meeting in September approves a special meeting that happened sometime in between. And at that special meeting, obviously they approved the minutes. So with all the searching I could find yesterday, I couldn't find the minutes. I don't know if they are available. So I decided just to go listen to the audio, and I'm really glad I did. So for those of you that were there, there's 3 of you in the room, you know, go listen to that audio. It's on the YouTube channel to refresh your memory. And Councillor Cunliffe, I suggest you go listen to it. Take 40 minutes out of a day before Thursday to understand. I thought understanding where it was and it left off was the best thing for me. But a couple of things came out when I listened to that audio. One was the time constraint. It was made clear by the then mayor and agreed by all the council that that particular council was not going to get this done because it was now July in the last year of their term, that there wasn't enough public participation. It needed to go back to the public, so it was not going to be done. That was the one big takeaway. And then CEO, the other takeaway was when the council deciding how to word the resolution or direction to staff, which they seemed like finally worded as, you know, everything aforesaid is going to be dealt with kind of resolution rather than giving the actual steps. But you responded with saying that the first thing that needs to happen is you need to go back, do another report and bring this report, and this report was going to include a lot of things Councillor Barmer brought up in questions he'd asked. So he had 6 points you want to ask, but as well as it was going to give us a view of other municipalities and how they've been dealing with this. And that was the first step that you wanted to do prior to any other further discussion. So then I looked at all the stuff you sent as attachments, and I'm trying to get myself up to speed. And I'm wondering to myself, and openly to everyone here, what are we doing on Thursday? Does this group think we've got 2 months or 3 months more than what the previous council had? Does this group think we can resolve this year? If not, why are we doing anything? And in my honest opinion, if there's ever something that should be in our OCP review, it's this, because it is an amendment to the OCP. We're adding another chapter to the OCP. So it needs significant involvement from residents. I don't know the benefit of having someone analyze hazards and risks in any more detail. Another subject matter expert helps us get to where we're going. I know, previously I was not quite prepared for this meeting the first time we tried to have it, and I asked for an extension. I now have kind of got myself to speed, but the more I think about it, the more I'm not sure why we're having it and where we're going with this. So that's what I wanted to put out there. I personally think this is part of the OCP review, and this council didn't get to it in 4 years, and the next council needs to deal with it.
So can I speak to that, or?
Chase?
Let's be quick on this topic. We've booked this twice. Everybody's concurred to it twice, and twice Councillor Abbott has come back and said we should cancel it.
So I had a meeting this morning, with Dr. Jacob, and went over some preliminary. He wanted to touch base with me on where he was at in the preparation for it. He has put in some time for it. And we're going to, again, review what he's got tomorrow, but he just sort of gave me a quick sort of, this is where I'm going presentation. It's going to cover a lot of information. And I think that whether or not this council moves the needle or advances the rock further up the hill, so to speak, is almost a separate consideration. It's the scope of the issue and the information. There's a lot of information, and he's really got. He's going to have a very thorough presentation that touches on all the different aspects that the Village of Lions Bay needs to think about, and how you go forward from there is an open question. It's up to council what the next steps will be, but dealing with this, this will be information for the record. It's an open meeting. I hope that members of the public will attend and
to that point, we haven't even posted it on the website.
Yeah, I know.
But don't even know it's happening. It wasn't even posted.
It was in the village update that there was a meeting coming up and the topic was geohazards. It's just the agenda itself. I was holding off to see what all I could.
Not only the agenda is not there, the meeting calendar doesn't have it.
Pardon me?
Not only the agenda is not there, the meeting calendar doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Unless that only happened today. I haven't checked today.
Sure. In any event, it will be a lot of good information to educate not only this council. I don't know how many of you will be part of the next council. And it will be something that it will be a touchstone of information that this and the future council will be able to come back to. And it'll be out in the open for the public to review and to ask questions about. It's the beginning of the conversation. It's got to start somewhere. And he's already done a bunch of work in preparation for it. And I think that we should hold it and just receive it. Ask questions, open your mind to the questions that you want to ask. I'm sure there'll be lots. There'll be a lot of good information on a lot of different aspects of this topic that, it's not going to be like, oh, okay, now we can do X or Y is the next step, but it begins that process and begins that conversation so that you can think about this. It's going to take a lot of thinking. It's going to take a lot of conversations. It's going to take a while to move it, but you got to start somewhere, and it's going to be ready to go. And I think it's going to be well worth your while.
Okay, so he's presenting this to us. There's nothing in advance.
There's lots of opportunity to ask questions along the way.
No, but he hasn't got something to present, to give to us earlier to review prior to
So
the.
he's putting it together and putting the finishing touches on it tomorrow. So, he's been trying to pull it together in his spare time and trying to cut us a bit of slack on it as well. So trying to tailor it to Lions Bay as well as all the other information. It's of more general nature. So
There you
yeah,
go.
we'll get it out there.
Thank you very
as
much.
possible.
Thank you very much, CEO. I'm happy with discussion, but we booked this individual twice. I, for one, have an interest in this topic. And I think, Councillor Abbott, nothing wrong with discussing what we're doing and all that stuff. But, I don't think you're looking forward to me putting a motion confirming that we're having this meeting, because we already are. So unless you have a motion, we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll put a motion that we reconsider having this meeting, and then we should.
Let's use the word cancel. You want it canceled?
I think I would prefer to see this meeting held with the next council, when otherwise you're going to do it again to bring them up to speed. And I would put a motion forward that we postpone until the next council the whole matter of natural hazard assessments, and it gets done as part of an OCP review on the next council with thorough public engagement. There you go. Do I have a second? I see a hand on the screen.
Second, call the motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no. I am a strong no.
I'm ambivalent.
Ambivalent is a yes. I would prefer that you actually made a decision.
So then, yes, I do feel that we have booked this gentleman twice, and out of respect for his time that he's put in, I also am interested in the topic. So I see Councillor Abbott's point, but I will get some information out of this. So yes, I will say we go ahead with it.
So you know,
You are a no.
Sorry. Yeah.
We've done this before. Please confirm that. Councillor Barmere.
Yeah, I'm always open to information and learning. I don't see there's any harm in presentation. So I'm a no.
Thank you very much. Motion defeated. Next piece, committees, which is the draft committee meeting moments. And this is on as an information piece. We're not being asked to receive it. It'll come back, I guess, at the next meeting, because this hasn't been approved by the tree committee yet. Key point being the discussion that was had a couple of weeks ago. There's an active member of the public that was involved, and we thank her for that. The takeaways are noted. The primary one is greater communication with the public relative to a tree application that would be pending. The example being that of the love tree that we talked about, it was approved, and a couple of weeks later there was public dissent. So it would be much easier if the public was aware there was going to be a cut, then they can refer to the site. Public Works would be doing the placing of the sign or signs to capture the relative neighbors, in addition to continuation of canvassing the affected neighbors. I think if I've encapsulated the majority of the key content, CAO.
Yeah, I think that ensuring that people who may potentially be interested in a tree application, what avenues do we have to make them aware of that? And having a sign, if they're going to drive by it, the location, having a sign out for each application is certainly a way that, we may reach people that don't read the village update or don't happen to notice that particular edition of it, or check the website for tree applications, etc. So I think that would be helpful in terms of addressing some of the concerns that were raised by the residents on Stewart that said that they didn't know about it until it was already happening. And I think that would be quite helpful. And that was probably one of the key considerations, and you'll see in the draft amendments for the trees, views, and landscapes bylaw in tonight's agenda that is incorporated along with some other aspects that are proposed for that draft bylaw. But that was certainly a good topic of conversation, and ensuring that we talked as well about the role of the tree committee and their terms of reference, and the difficulty of them having to consider the positions of those who are looking to enhance a view or reclaim a view, and those who have an affinity for trees in the vicinity. So it's a difficult job. There was discussion about whether or not the terms of reference needed to be amended. At the end of the day, it was felt that they adequately set out that conflict and the role of the tree committee in trying to weigh those competing interests. And then there was also discussion shortly, a short discussion at the end with respect to nesting provisions and the additional information that I received from a registered professional biologist to help us enhance the provisions and some of the deficiencies that we had in our original amendment of the bylaw to introduce the nesting provisions. There were some deficiencies that needed to be addressed. So we think we've strengthened that, but we'll get to that later tonight. But that was more or less the topics of conversation.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, we're going to see this later on tonight.
I have one that it's not dealt with later on tonight. So the chair of the committee suggests that fines should be levied against the company that does the cutting as well as the owner. And that, I didn't see that. Was that given consideration or not, or it's not part of any of the further correspondence?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that would be part of a bylaw, but it is something that I was going to look into in terms of determining our ability to do that.
Okay, so we're still considering that?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to really look into that in any detail yet.
Yeah. It just seems to make a lot of sense. There's probably no more than half a dozen companies that work in the village, probably all well known to you in the workshop. You educate them what the bylaw says and tell them they're on the hook. You could control the whole thing. Other than trying to educate 530 households, you can educate 6 companies.
Right.
Yeah, it could be something that we include when we get the WorkSafe BC compliance letter.
It's also something we could have as part of an education process with a business license, if we ever get around to having business licenses.
Well, let's not couple them.
Let's not get too far with business licenses, shall we?
Okay.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Next one, the CAO Emergency Services. That's on my topic.
There's nothing there.
Thank you. Resolutions, item A, Councillor Cunliffe, can you put that forward?
Attendance at the LMLGA conference, that council approved Councillor Cunliffe's attendance at the Lower Mainland Local Government Association Annual Conference and AGM taking place in Whistler from May 4th to 6th, 2022, and approves expenses in the amount up to $1,200, including taxes and fees.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, will you second?
Sure.
Thank you. Discussion. Let's tell us why you're going.
I want to lobby hard for regional transit between Pemberton and Vancouver, incorporating all of the Sea to Sky communities, of which now I feel our position could be strengthened, being out of the urban containment boundary. And I know I've had ongoing discussions with different councillors in Whistler, Squamish, as well as both the mayors. And we are left off the table because it was under the impression of our MLAs that we are being serviced by TransLink, and therefore we weren't even ever considered or invited to the table for a discussion. So I think now is an opportunity to keep on that topic
Good.
and see what else is going on.
Could you, CEO?
Oh, I was just going to say that I did have a conversation with our MLA about the topic, just to
Recently,
just recently,
Okay.
just to get up to speed and to find out the status of the MOU and when that was done. And went back and looked at some of the regional transit reports that were done by BC Transit and where things are at. Are we on the map? Yes, we are, in terms of anticipated stops along the way. I think that there's, in terms of being included in the conversation, I'm not sure that, there's sitting at the table, so to speak, their table could be a double-edged sword because, to play is pay to play, so to speak, right? I think there's a fine line between having the opportunity to be heard and to help, lend our voice to the cause, so to speak, versus, and to ensure that, we're included as part of the service, the anticipated service. Just sort of a little bit of caution with respect to, do we want to be part of the decision-making process and all that may entail?
yeah, understood. My initial conversations is that we weren't even going to be a stop. They were going to pick up in Squamish and straight shot right by us. It wasn't even, which just doesn't make any sense, especially considering Furry Creek, we're anticipating more development. There's Britannia Beach, so
I'll just send you a few things that I've got.
Yeah, that would
just
be great.
highlighting some of the points that, you want to make sure that we're included on.
Thank you, Peter.
There you go.
Does Transit 2050 speak to or consider any of this?
There's a line item in there for regional transit from Sea to Sky corridor.
Yeah.
That doesn't say a heck of a lot, but to sort of a future discussion point, anticipated potential service considerations and coordination of service and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think what Peter just gave you is more than the line item.
Yeah, fair enough, but I guess, so the point is, just because you're part of Metro should not exclude you, especially if Transit 2050 looks at the bigger picture as well, right?
Yeah, there'll be lots of, there's been some preliminary discussion, conversation between the two entities, and there was 2 consultation processes that took place within TransLink service area, the second of which had a lot of participation, including from us. So I anticipate that they would work together to see, how does this mesh, where does it go? Where does it stop? All those things will have to be considered, so.
Thank you very much. I will call a motion, but not before I say, enjoy your 3 days away from the family and the dog. And we look forward to hearing everybody. So we'll call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes.
So can we comment first?
Yep.
I know you said that jokingly, Jess, but it probably wasn't the reason, and I hope that's not the reason Councillor Cunliffe is going Whistler. I would like to say, Councillor Cunliffe, consider this seriously, and she believes there's a benefit, and obviously, the benefit's going to carry on to future years, and when she's running next year, she can be responsible. I'm not going to oppose it, but she just needs to consider that we're getting $1,200 worth of good money, and that's the commitment, and then she should go. But yeah, I know you said that flippantly and joking, but it's probably not a good record to be left in the meeting.
Well, Councillor Abbott, I'll have you correct my public statements in the future. Thank you very much. I did call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes and opposed no.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Next one, item B, Econ Board Directors. On page 27, Nicole Works is here. I'll begin with the preamble here. I can't tell you how much the mayors on the North Shore, and I appreciate former Mayor of District North Vancouver, Richard Walton, continuing to stand for this. I'll put forward the motion that the Village of Lions Bay nominates Richard Walton to represent the Village of Lions Bay on the Econ Board of Directors for the 2023 term, such board to be appointed by Ecom shareholders at the June 23rd, 2022 annual general meeting. Councillor Bain, can you second for me?
I second.
Thank you very much. It's pretty straightforward. He sits, he votes, and I give everybody as much as I can on Ecom. Any other questions? None? Call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to item number 11, bylaw A, garbage and recycling fees bylaw amendment. That's on page 137, and that bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 385, 2006, amendment bylaw number 611, 2022 be adopted. I will forward that motion. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Good. And actually we'll do this. No, we'll separate them. No, we won't. Sorry, Councillor Cunliffe. I'll continue on. That garbage and recycling collection bylaw number 455, 2013 amendment, bylaw number 616, 2022 be adopted. Now, can I ask for your second?
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion? I'm going gone. All those in favor, call the motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Which we now move on to page 183 of your package, which is the 2022-2026 5-year financial plan bylaw number 61722. And the recommendation is that this 5-year financial plan bylaw number 617-2022 be read a first and second time. Councillor Barmier, can you put that forward?
Sure.
Councillor Cunliffe, can you second?
Second.
Any questions for the CFO before we move?
Oh, I do have some questions. Yep. I have one specific question. So under the 2022 budget, well, all years, we have what we're calling capital expenditures as a kind of a lump sum, let's say, 1.92 million, so on and so forth. In this bylaw, we don't specify what that is. So how much freedom do we have with that money?
Yeah, so where it's specified, is we go back to the budget.
Okay.
Because this is where the detail was.
Yeah.
So we have flexibility in the sense that although this is a bylaw, we would do it again next year. So it's kind of the locked-in years, the 2022.
Okay.
And then
I don't want to waste your time, so I want to get straight to the point. So we have earmarked $120,000 for a GHG reduction effort. And I'm wondering if we could generalize that $120,000 spent, because there might be more grant opportunities coming up between now and the summer. So whether we apply for a municipal hall upgrade or whether we apply for any other greenhouse reduction efforts that are grant subsidized, I'd like to see some flexibility and have a fulsome discussion within council on where to best spend that money, as opposed to locking it into one project. Is that something we can do?
the reason I had it in here, it's an odd requirement of the ISIP grant that it be in our budget, which I've never seen before.
Well, we had the same thing with our ZEVA grant, right? It also called for us to have budgeted money. So I'm asking if we can put some flexibility in the language to allow for that money to go for a greenhouse grant project. Greenhouse gas reduction project.
Are you thinking in terms of a rebudget kind of thing?
Not a rebudget, but let's say we apply for 2 grants in parallel. We don't win one, but we win the other. And we want to make sure we can apply that money because the effort is the same. The goal is to reduce greenhouse gases, right? But the idea would be to put that money towards the strongest project. And because we're limited in our funds, I'm asking if we can be flexible on that particular line item.
Yeah, I imagine we could, because even when they ask for the bylaw, because the backup for this grant requirement is this bylaw.
Perfect.
And bylaws specifically for that reason are very general. And then I would just say that, so yes, to answer your question, yes. And I would also anticipate if for some reason, we decide the ISIP grant isn't the best fit and we go for another grant. So I've tried to keep it. I mean, it just specifically says Village Hall, but I would think, yes, we could, because this wouldn't be sent in with the application. It would just be this saying included in that. But I felt like I did have to include it to be able to say it.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I just want,
Details, yes.
I just want to be clear on that because
It was an
I
odd
think-
requirement
Yeah.
to specifically require it in the budget.
thank you for clarifying.
I know you like the right answer.
Yeah.
Good. Councilors, any other questions before I call a motion? Call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Good, Gary, thank you very much, and we'll see this next meeting. Next item up is the trees, views, and landscape. And the motion is that trees, views, and landscapes bylaw number 393, 2007, amendment bylaw 619, 2022 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time. I'll call for that motion. Councilor Abbott, will you second for me?
Yes.
Thank you. Discussion, CAO, points here.
So as I had mentioned, we've got some proposed amendments to provide for a definition of a nesting survey. And that was a shortcoming that we didn't have previously. And that was done with the assistance of an RP bio. She also provided us with the content for Schedule D, which provides some guidance in terms of what to look for in a report from an RP bio for a nesting survey. At her recommendation as well, and as I had previously noted in various places, you know, sometimes a nesting survey might be done by an RP bio, and sometimes it would be by a technician or some other qualified professional, the key being that they're a qualified environmental professional. And she strongly recommended that we use that instead of limiting the requirement to a registered professional biologist. There are lots of qualified environmental professionals who are capable of doing that work. So that was added and the other removed. The definite, you know, while we're at it, you know, things that have come up in the last couple of years are things like whose tree is it? If it's on a property line, how do you decide whose tree it is? Previously, we've had some issues with trees that are sort of leaning and then, you know, at 1.4 meters, it's different than if you measure at the base. So given that the tree grows out of the ground and somebody may have planted it, the election was was decided to go with you measure at the base and go with 50% plus is the owner of the tree. And the tree committee meeting gave rise to the addition of clarifications on the process that is utilized, and including provision for Public Works to put a sign out once we receive an application when they go to visit the site, so that people can more readily see that there's something going on, and if they're interested, they can check in with the municipality or look at the website. And those applications will also be uploaded right away as soon as we can to the website, the applications page. And then we removed the application forms, which is not really best practice in any bylaw to have your application forms within the bylaw. Things change, you want to tweak things from time to time, then every time you do something, you know, even if their internal process changes, you've got to go back for a bylaw amendment. So the time was ripe to remove those and just renumber the schedules. So the tree committee's terms of reference is Schedule A, right at the beginning of the schedules. I think that's important to have it there. And the other schedules, B and C, sorry, I forget offhand what they are now, but so the schedules are relabeled. And some renumbering was required in terms of the changes that were made to the bylaw. But those are all track change. Consolidation is part of this. And let me just see if anything else jumps out at me. Sorry. The other aspect to the nesting provisions was the addition of sections 3.4.9 and 3.4.10 to ensure that nesting surveys in their completeness are provided to the municipality as part of the process. And that's a requirement. And that we may even in fact require the production of the nesting survey from the applicant or from the qualified environmental professional. And then there was really no sort of how does this finish off? Would it have to go back to council, or was council approval based upon a nesting survey, and the presumption being that if the nesting survey results in a clearance letter, then the CAO ought to be provided with the authority to grant the permit at that point. And if that's not the case from the nesting survey, then the permit is not to be granted, but the CAO needs to be given that authority to do that. So that was added. And I think that's sort of more or less the crux of it.
Thank you very much, CEO. And this followed not one, but two very wholesome meetings late in 2021. And again, most recently. So thank you very much for those revisions, CEO, to join and bringing it forward so quickly. Councilor Barber, you've got a question?
Yeah, I guess the only question, this is all came as a bit of a surprise to me, so I have to apologize, but I'm just wondering if we could just do first and second reading at today's meeting and pump the brakes on the third reading. Just because I'd like to have a bit more time, and I based on the correspondence we got in late, I think maybe even the public would like to have a bit more time to look at these revisions and weigh in, because it's important to a lot of people how we handle this.
Yeah, I wavered between 2 and 3 readings, went with 3 because of the fact that we're already in nesting season. So might want to get it done, and with the recognition that certainly could slow it down if you like.
Appreciate that. That's my ask, that's all.
Could I also just draw attention to 3.6.1.2, the penalty, the fines for cutting a significant tree without a permit? I'm fairly certain the city of Vancouver and the city of North Vancouver, it's a $10,000 per tree fine, like right off the bat, no reduced rate for the first one and a second one. So I don't know if we want to look at bringing that fine in line with other communities, because we've seen what people can do, and you're looking to improve your property value. 40, 50 grand and clear cutting your lot is really not that significant of a deterrent. I don't know, anybody else have thoughts on that?
How about I will be putting in line of what Councillor Barmer said, it will be modifying the resolution. Could we also, if there's any questions that you'd like staff to review what the other municipalities are charging, just so they've got the facts?
Yeah, and look at if it is, bring us into alignment.
Okay, so before you start making a list, I have several of them. So but back to revising the resolution and Councillor Barmer's suggestion, I would like to take one step further and suggest we receive this report, because I've got lots of questions.
Okay.
We can do the readings at the next meeting. And lots of things I think we need to do further.
Okay, why don't we just
That's a suggestion.
Councillor Baines,
do you want to do just one reading and then it's on the table? And
No, I said receive it and it's on the table. If you do a reading, it's on the table.
I don't see a haste for this.
Yeah, I don't.
Councillor Bain has his hand up.
No, he's on the run line. If I just pause everybody else, Councillor Bain?
Yeah, I don't have anything really monumental here. It's just a little tweak. On page 193, on the paragraph beginning hazardous tree, you've got the administrator there, where on the page before you've stricken that and putting in CAO, just a bit of an edit if you don't mind. And also,
which page, Councillor Bain?
193.
193, yeah.
And so it's the
Well, you've got definitions above, or you've, let me go up to it. In the page before, you've got definitions. Administrator means the person appointed by council, and it's stricken.
Yep.
And so down here, we're using administrator, where I would think you would mean CAO now, because administrator is being stricken from the definition.
Yeah, so wherever administrator appears, it was supposed to have been stricken, but I'll have to do a search for that.
Okay. One other thing, if I could ask, it makes for a much easier reading when you're going to, say, in the 3 paragraphs below, referring to a qualified environmental professional, and you refer to them as the QEP. If we're going to go to initials sort of for terms like that, can we put them in parentheses after the terms so that we know what it means without having to scale back again? It's a small ask, but it would make for an easier read, I think.
Okay.
I think there's another one about RP Bio further back, but you know, sorry, I don't mean to nitpick or anything, but I just thought a few tweaks might be helpful. And that's about it for me.
Great, colleagues. So more, or shall I amend this?
Well, I can speak after you.
Well, I was thinking if we might want to do that, or you want to devote a special session to it after we gone to the public. What's your thinking?
My thing is, if we receive it tonight, I've got a few questions that I would suggest to Peter that he takes some notes for others, and then we can bring back something that's closer.
Let's go with the questions, and then we'll
put
it to bed. Thank you.
Okay. So first of all, as to the change from an RP Bio to biologist, agrologist, technician, and technologist, I went back and spoke to the person who originally told me that it should be an RP Bio. If you call it, yes, it should be. And he said, well, in large surveys, sometimes, yes, they might use technicians. He would never use an agrologist, but even if it did use technicians or technologists, at the end of the day, it's the RP Bio that's the guy that's got the seal that's signing off on it. So it always needs to involve the RP Bio. That was his opinion, which was different to what you heard. So I thought, well, let's get a third opinion. So I spoke to a resident who's an RP Bio, whose information I'll share with you afterwards. And I told him about the bylaw, and what it used to say, and what it says now, and I mentioned agrologist, and he said absolutely not. He said he doesn't think professional agrologists would even consider themselves qualified, and they shouldn't be doing it. So I think we have multiple opinions on that. So I will give you his name, the resident. So after the meeting, Peter, and I only spoke to him this afternoon an hour ago, or an hour before the meeting started. So there was no time to get it hold of him before that. As to what we're doing this, you said we're doing this to strengthen the bylaw. I think it dilutes the bylaw. This particular part, definitely think it dilutes the bylaw. I think this rush of permits we've just seen this year happen now is exactly what we wanted to achieve. We've stopped people sitting on village property, cutting down trees during the Songbird nesting season. We've forced them to realize they have to do it earlier. It's been a great education campaign. I think we've also made, hopefully, a lot more people think about what they're doing on their own property and cutting down trees. So I think we should, on the RP Bio one, stick to the way it was. I think it was certainly made it onerous to do so. I think there's good reason to keep it onerous and to keep drawing the people's attention to this. And I think all those permits we saw coming was proved to me it was working. So that's on those ones. There's a suggestion down, and this is a discussion I had earlier today with Public Works. There's a suggestion that, no, let's find the page. Page 97. That what part of Public Works, part of the things that Public Works needs to do is put up the sign, potential effects of the village infrastructure, consider that, and then comment on the size, the health, and subject of the trees, including potential risks associated with cutting. As for the discussion we had earlier, the Public Works manager, the Public Works are completely focused. They are conditioned to take away risk. We've seen consistently that if we go get an arborist to give us a professional report, it describes the tree as healthy, has a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of that, largely very little risk. But the Public Works risk is always, if they see any risk, it's cut down the tree. So I think that's dangerous. And I think they keep the arborists and Public Works are motivated differently, but asking that the Public Works provide the expert opinion on the health of the tree is what's creating a lot of these issues. So I think that should be stricken. As to the whether the form should be part of the bylaw, I think the form should be part of the bylaw. I thought forms are always part of bylaws. We have bylaw revisions to tweak the odd little thing that can set us at a step, and I think that we should leave it. Previously, that form changed even when I was looking at tree permits several times. I'll go back to that. That's not what I read last time. So I think that we should leave the form in the bylaw so we keep things rigid and we don't somehow go down a diversion path unintended by changing something on the form. Those are my comments.
Yeah, it's really sort of a, sorry if I can speak to that a little bit. It's an operational matter that's got nothing to do with policy behind the bylaw. It's just simply a process for staff to follow. And I think that putting it into a policy document like a bylaw is really, you're getting down into the weeds, and you ought to just step back a little bit and let staff do their jobs. It's a procedural aspect of things that, we have lots of forms. We deal with them all the time. We use forms in different ways. We change them all the time. This is no different.
So let me just speak to that. One of the things that's changed on that form over the years, and now it's not even prescriptive, is who the affected neighbours are. We used to say different things. Every time I looked at it, it was changed. I think that has an impact on the bylaw. And I think that's a significant thing that we shouldn't be changed.
The affected neighbor, that was a definition in the bylaw that changed once. It used to have a definition that was very, it was totally ambiguous. It was like the next door neighbor and the person across the street or something like that. The adjacent properties is what it used to say. And then it changed. It was amended to what it is now, like several years ago, when I first met with the tree committee in about 2017. And that's when the current definition was brought in. Eventually, we brought the forms around to be consistent with what the definition is, so that the people who are having to go out and do it understand what they're supposed to do and who is an affected property
So
owner.
what is the current definition?
It's right here, page.
Right in the bylaw. That's what it's been since about 2017.
Who actually goes out and makes the determination of line of sight? I'm just curious, because I've had a change in line of sight on an application that I didn't get asked. Where I used to sit, now I'm fully exposed. I'm just curious, who makes that determination?
In the first instance, it's the applicant who has to determine who is going to be affected, who's the surrounding neighbors who ought to be consulted and comments
That seems somewhat problematic.
sought from. Yeah, and that's why, when it comes in, we do as staff take a look at the map and go, okay, have they canvassed what about this property or that property?
Yeah.
And there's only so much we can do in that respect, because we're not in that neighborhood all the time, and we don't live next door or 3 doors up and to the left. So that's where having something like the addition of the sign requirement is going to, I would hope, provide that additional level of notification, so that if you are 3 doors up and to the left and, oh, that is in my line of sight, I have something to say about this, you'll know that something's going on and you can take the opportunity to do that. So it is problematic, any way you slice it, even if that was in the first instance, staff who was having to drive out there and look at it. And we have been known to actually go out and take a look at things before, or, you know, we used to canvass this when it was in the back room in the staff room downstairs in the old council chambers, but it's a little bit problematic, and I hope that, you know, we do check it to the best of our ability, and then hopefully with the additional sign requirements, we'll get that additional level of notice to people that enables them to participate if they want.
I think we should consider, is it both? Is it both maybe the neighbours, the immediate neighbours, and it used to say 2 to the north, south, east, west. Is it both them as well as others that may have the line of sight, have you worded it, proximate enjoyment, etc. Because we've had some recent tree permits that didn't only included the neighbour on one side, and I pointed it out to you, and just so I think it should be both, to be honest.
Both what?
You should have the immediate neighbours, whether we make an immediate neighbour or 2 to each side, as well as
it does say adjacent property, and any property owner who's like
any adjacent property.
So adjacent property and property whose line of sight. So if they're across the street or something like that, so.
Okay.
It's as wide as it can possibly be within reason. And then the sign requirement, I think, is going to.
I think the sign requirements are a great improvement, and it's a really good idea.
That's a gold brick. That's the eye opener for everybody. I don't propose that we keep point counterpointing between councillor and CAO.
Yeah, so
I hear your points.
Yeah, but I'm going to end on one other thing I'll say. The other thing, the reason why I'd say about receiving this and not reading it tonight is, I think it should go back to the tree committee as well.
I did send it off to them. I didn't get any comments back.
Well, I think poke them hard, tell them to say something, tell them to read it, tell them to say they agree with it or they disagree.
Actually, I think Councillor Evans, you've got a good idea. I think we should, knowing folks quite well, they're quick to make sure they get the date for a meeting right, but sometimes electronically they're a little hard to get. So if we could do that. So Councillor Abbott, I think you made some suggestions. The CAO is thinking about them as he's been writing copiously. So my recommendation, if it's fine with you, sir, both of you, sirs, is that when this comes back to us, that either the CAO has reached a taunt with Councillor Abbott, or if not, that, you know, the area is blocked out in yellow or whatever color you choose, so that we can focus on and make the call on it. If that's fine with both of you, take that as a yes. Thank you. So municipal coordinator, help me retract the confirmation of the first and second and third reading back to receive.
Or the other option is that you could postpone, since you've already moved and seconded, you could simply postpone it to the next meeting. Instead of amending it and then.
Okay.
Or you can call a question, everybody just votes it down.
Yeah.
I think this would be much easier. Okay. Call a motion. All those in favor, for clarity, no.
No.
Thank you. Never again.
We've been told how to vote.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be doing hand signals next. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Good suggestion, Councillor Barmere. Great suggestion, Councillor Abbott. Which brings us, and it's hard to believe it's only his second to last time to do this for the quarter. But Councillor Bain, you were in correspondence. I have my eye on the clock, not to rush things along, but I recommend that on the exterior correspondence, you make a comment to receive. I've got one that I'd like to pick out, but I'll leave it with you.
Okay. Yeah, I think all the ones from general correspondence would be received for information. I don't think there's anything we need to address. Although the St. John Ambulance one with their Start Me Up campaign was promoting getting AEDs placed around in various communities, but they never say how much or who's going to pay for it. But anyhow, that's that. From the resident correspondence, we're broken down into 3 on this page of each of the topics, and essentially more on the on table ones. And I think we've addressed all of them in our the regular part of the meeting. So unless you have comments.
If I can just, I'll let you be the counterpoint on back to the general correspondence. Councillor Bay, can I ask that you respond to St. John's and say thanks, but no?
Oh, okay. Yeah, will do.
Thank you. So on the, if I can guide you then, the item from Mr. Reuter that's been dealt with, I think Mrs. Rogers dealt with, Mr. Watterson, Tree Committee Chair, dealt with, and I think we've dealt with the timber sales for the next 3 down. On the on table, which is 12B, Ms. Schneider is what herbicide spraying, I think we're covered there. Tree bylaw, we're covered there, and it was also spraying. And Ms. Nelson, the same. And I think the other 2 were tree applications. So I think if you feel that those require a reply, then you can, Councillor Bain. If not, I'd be happy with not.
Yeah, like I said, I think we had dealt with it in the open session, so I believe they've been all addressed by staff and council.
Rich, you're good. Councillor, just fine with everybody? Is there somebody we want to pick out or invite? Rich?
No, I don't want to put anything out, just a question. Simon Watterson's email was reading, he was writing as the chair of the tree committee. Was it really correspondence? I don't think it shouldn't be. No, it shouldn't be.
No, we're circulating with him all the time. Okay, good. Thank you very much, Councillor Bain. It will be our swan song next meeting. Which brings us to the next item, which is new business. And I've drawn this heading and I only want to spend a minute. It's called Commercial Road Signage. And it's come to me by a resident who has a strong view on this, is that commercial road signs, as in hairdresser, pro painters, this kind of thing that appears usually on small sandwich boards or on the pin sandwich boards that appear on public property, whether it's near the Centennial Trail or in front of somebody's home, which is most likely our property, should not be permitted. I don't have a personal view on this. If I could get the village's viewpoint on this from the CAO in brief, that would be appreciated.
Well, in brief, we don't have a signed bylaw. In the past, when the previous mayor felt like there was too many realtor signs, he contacted the realtors and asked them to remove them once they, had their initial blitz or their open house or what have you. So it was more of a personal reaching out on that level. I think as it stands right now, when you enter into the commercial complex, there's some signage there, sandwich boards on what's probably strata property. There's a couple of boards that are off to the right as you're entering onto the on-ramp for the highway, but they're not, I haven't really seen them in the way of traffic or creating a hazard with respect to traffic. So I'm not sure, they're really no different than signage that appears at the corner of Ocean View and Cross Creek on the fence from time to time when things are happening, or at the corner of Lions Bay Avenue and the on-ramp by the underpass, various different locations. I guess the question is really one for council in a small community like ours. There are limited opportunities there's limited commercial entities in the first place, but there's limited opportunities people to try to draw folks in. And there's challenges in that respect because we are such a small. So, you know, some people would probably look at that and think it's more of a folksy small town kind of atmosphere that it's adding to. Others clearly take a different view. I don't really have an expression one way or the other. So I think it's really a case of whether or not, I haven't heard a tidal wave of complaints. This is the first one that I've heard in some time. But
By saying first, it's the only one.
Pardon me?
Tidal wave and one or two.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Kind of, I went with the extreme. But this is the only complaint I'm aware of. Obviously, in the past, there was, I've already alluded to Mayor Burr's views on it, so.
Thank you very much, CEO. Councillors, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. If there's a movement to make any changes, you can consider that and bring it forward, but I just wanted you to be alerted.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
So we're not being asked to decide anything yet. I'm surprised that we don't have a signed bylaw.
I mean, it was brought up at the time.
I don't think someone can, I couldn't go put a sign outside my front lawn advertising what I'm doing there. Could I?
We do have, I think there's something 100%.
This came up
in our zoning bylaw.
I know we had a bed and breakfast in one stage many years ago. We could not get a sign.
Yeah, in our zoning bylaw, we permit home-based businesses, but without any signage indicating that you're operating a home.
Not allowed to have any signs.
Yeah, so that's the only place that we have that. That's with respect to home-based businesses.
I do have my eye on the clock, and I know that some of you have been awake since 4:30 this morning, and others in foreign lands. Many of us wish we'd gone to foreign lands, and some of you have been to Ontario, and I think I've said enough about that. So I'd like to move on. Thank you. So we're on to item number 14, public questions and comments. We've got some time. We've got some members of the gallery. If you'd like to come forward, please do so. Again, you don't have to put your camera on, just unmute. Okay, we'll go with Mr. Leeson first, Mr. Stretsky second.
I feel like I need involved here. I hear when you start making comments about the event group and we're more like a retirement community, I think we really do need to encourage the younger generation to participate more. I just want to highlight a couple comments. I'm going to use a balanced approach. I just hearing Peter, I do agree, like the form, in my opinion, shouldn't be part of the bylaws because it is an operational matter or where I know because do your job and to be able to address concerns and add benefits so that you can efficiently and effectively handle concerns or adjustments in a timely fashion. The tax dollars, hearing you guys talk, yeah, dollars are a concern. You just highlighted a number of vendors, about, I think you mentioned 6 vendors in the community. Again, I think that it's a small town community and people will support you. I think you should try to utilize vendors that have businesses that you already support that can save taxpayer dollars. Here we're worried kind of like $1,200 to go to Whistler. You can save a lot more by reaching out to the community, and I think that you would get the response, but people need you to also ask for that. Allocations of funds, I think it was Councillor Bearmeyer, the flexibility to use funds. I agree with his comment. It would be extremely beneficial. I think there's a note of $120,000. I think that definitely would have that flexibility, so I would agree on that. Stewart Road, the tree, that's why I was here initially. Again, I appreciate your balanced approach, listening. The onus, obviously, us taking on the arborist ourselves as well as you, it just shows the vested interest, and we do appreciate you listening. Just listening to this last comment on commercial road signage. Again, I think that it is a small community that, believe it or not, I was drawn to this community because of purchasing a property, a real estate sign is what drew me in. So to grow your community, I like the small community. Like when you consider that one comment or is there a plethora of comments? Again, really, I think it's a moot point almost from my perspective. So I just want to say thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leeson. Mr. Stretsky.
Yeah, so It's clear that the administrator is avoiding addressing the beach issue. The project itself is still in hiding. What is the purpose he's hiding this project? Is he brave enough to answer, or is he just coward enough to hide further? Because I asked a few times, the mayor asked you a few times, and you're ignoring it. And we're paying your time, mister. We are paying for you sitting here and making funny smileys. Do you get it? You're taking our money and you're not doing the work. This has to end. Is that clear?
I think you were advised, Mr. Shredsky, that you'll have an answer in writing to your questions at the beginning of the meeting.
No, I don't have an answer. Mayor asked you in writing last week to answer where is the status of the project, where's the money, and when it will happen the public tender. Why are you hiding it?
You'll have your answer in writing, Mr. Shredsky, as the mayor indicated at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shredsky. And that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. And to the gallery, we'll say thank you for joining us and good night, as we will be going off into our closed session to conclude that. I expect we will be back to report out. So we'll pause for a few minutes while we say good night to the gallery. If you could put us on mute, Carla. Let's take a evening, everybody. It is 20 to 11. Council's come out of the in-camera portion meeting. And the final item to be reported out is that council has approved staff to sign a contract with Core Management to act as project manager for the Lions Bay Beach Park renovation, the Clat building retrofit, and the Lions Bay Connector projects, subject to a project engineer budget coming back to council. That's all there is to report out. Can I have a motion to close the open meeting? Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Thank you, Councillor Abbott, for seconding. All those in favor, please confirm. Thank you all. Good night, everybody. And Carla, can you cut, please?